Last year, I played in one of these Spiegel tents. It was the biggest room because I only went up for a week, and it was a very compromised festival. But it was great in some ways. I had big audiences, and there was not much competition on. But it did mean I had some people come along who had never seen me before, and that was the only game in town. You know?
Yes.
And I do a bit in my current show about trans, and I don't think it is particularly sort of provocative or confrontational, but it's teasing, certainly, and it points out some of the incoherent sort of, consequences of self-ID and so on.
Yes.
And I had a couple of walkouts, and they left before, of course, I get onto the bit towards the end of the show where all of that comes back and turns around and the tables are turned on me, and I make revelations about my own hormone profile, which I had, had a test, like a blood test done, and discovered that I actually was very low T myself, having sort of like ascribed all this weird behaviour to everyone being low T and drinking soy. So they didn't see that it was there was a self-deprecating second shoe that fell. But they walked out, and on the way out, as far as I understand it, they passed in front of house staff who knew nothing about me and had never seen me before. And they said, where are you going? What's the matter? And they said, disgusting. He's doing anti-trans material or something. And then I got an email from the venue saying, just to let you know, we've had complaints from some of the venue staff that you're doing anti-trans material, and it makes them feel unsafe. And without going into too much detail, because they handled it fine, the venue and everything, this is the sort of thing that can happen now. It's a sort of Chinese whispers. These people hadn't even seen the material. They didn't know what they were talking about, and they didn't know the context into which eventually it is enfolded in the course of the show. But that is definitely something that's happening now, and it is something comedians need to be aware of. And it is, of course, a problem as soon as I say, you attract new people who don't understand that there might be some irony, that they don't understand that there might be some context, So that is difficult.
It's difficult to know whether that's a sincere thing, whether they literally have, whether they've lost the capacity to understand irony, or whether they are weaponizing the complaint system.
Yeah.
And particularly that notion of safety. Because, if you say to someone, I'm unsafe, it's suddenly a health and safety issue. It's not just a criticism.
No, exactly. The whole thing has to be shut down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To be fair to the venues, as I say, they stood their ground, and I'm grateful for them doing so. But I think it's an unresolved issue at this point. I think you're absolutely right. But I try not to think that it's necessarily used cynically. I do think a lot of young people do experience a degree of not feeling safe now. There's a book, you're probably familiar with it, The Coddling of the American Mind, Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt, and it makes quite alarming reading, the extent to which young people do experience the world, not the literally physical, violent, threatening world of dangerous dogs and drug addicts and so on, but also of the notion that challenging their identity is challenging their right to exist. They frame things in their mind in a way that makes it very, very difficult to have a serious conversation.
Well, I also